This is Mario Party 1 on the Nintendo 64. Like many people growing up with the Nintendo 64, I played the heck out of this. It still stands up today as a great game and a fantastic example of the N64 being a multiplayer powerhouse. The thing about N64 games is they make great speedrunning games. When I found speedrunning many years ago, the first thing I did was check out runs for all the N64 games I knew. It's fair to say that I wasn't disappointed. Most of the platformers that I grew up with were completely broken thanks to the hard work of the community, and this mainly comes down to the physics. Because it was fairly new to make 3D games, a lot of the physics ended up being a little bit broken and pretty exploitable. For example, Donkey Kong 64. Or even the surprisingly good movie tie-in game for Toy Story 2. But it seems that all the cool N64 speedruns come down to either physics and movement, or having a really complicated item system that you can exploit. But Mario Party is essentially a board game simulator, so how does this work? If you look at speedrun.com, you'll see the main category is Minigame Island. This is a grind through all the minigames, and it's a really cool run worth checking out if you haven't seen it before. But what about a full game run? The game does have an ending with credits, but there are no categories which play through the whole thing. The main reason for this is the sheer length and randomness of this category. To actually beat Mario Party 1, you need to do two things. First of all, you need to beat all the maps. This is pretty realistic to do, and there's even a speedrun category for just this. But in a new playthrough of Mario Party, you need to get 100 stars in total to unlock the last map and beat the game. With most rounds of Mario Party taking 30 to 60 minutes and you're getting 3 to 4 stars per round, it's easy to see why the clean cart full game category doesn't have a speedrun. If you ever want to beat Mario Party yourself, here's a good way to cheese it. You can start up the game with 4 controllers plugged in, but pick just a one player game. You can play to turn 20. Now on turn 20, you'll change all of the computers to players, and when you finish, all 4 players will have their star count towards 100 star total. Because it counts stars for whoever's actually playing the game, and you can swap from computers to players halfway through a game of Mario Party. In fact, even if you want, you can set all players to computers, and they'll just automatically play the first 20 turns for you, and then you can just set yourself back to players on the last turn. Now, this strategy of setting everyone to computers and swapping out to players at the last minute works particularly well, especially if you have no friends. But even with this strategy, you might not be able to get enough stars, and it's sort of a co-op speedrun since you use 4 players. I was really interested in just as a single player speedrun, which led to a couple questions. How quickly can you beat Mario Party from a clean cartridge? And well, since you need to beat all the maps anyway, this how quickly question changed into can you get all 100 stars just from playing each map once and with the minimum game length of 20 turns? And that's what I wanted to know. Now, the answer to this depends on the key question of this video. The question is, how many stars can you get in a 20-turn game of Mario Party? And there's a couple of conditions on this. So first one is you can play on any map you want. Second is it won't include the 3 bonus stars at the end of the game, because that would just be adding on 3, it'd be pretty boring. Next, we'll assume there are no special blocks, like the coin block or the extra movement block. This won't make too much of a difference though. We'll also assume that this looks like a tool-assisted speedrun, meaning we can manipulate the RNG to get absolutely perfect luck and make no mistakes at all. If you're familiar with Mario Party 1, I'd actually encourage you to jump into the comments and have a guess about how many stars you reckon you could get in a 20-turn game. It'd be pretty interesting to see what people say. In this video, we're going to try and get an answer to this question, but I should also mention that this is all my own investigation. I'm sure there are people who know a lot more than me about Mario Party 1. For example, this excellent video called Identifying Luck by Zoomzyke talks about all the RNG and how it works in the game. But I'll be taking you on the journey of my own research into answering this question. This video will be broken up into 2 parts. This part is the investigation phase, and we'll learn the answer to how many stars we can get in theory. Then in part 2, I'm going to break down the technical details of how we actually manipulate luck in Mario Party and how this is all possible. So how do you actually get a star in Mario Party? Well, we're about to see Luigi get one here. The first thing you need to do is land on a Toad space, and then you need to pay Toad 20 coins to get a star. So the coins can be found by landing on blue spaces, passing Koopa, passing Boo, or winning minigames at the end of each turn. So there's lots of ways to get coins, and that's usually fine. In terms of Toad himself, Toad will move around the map to a random spot. That's on a map like this. There are other maps where he's in the same set spot. Now, with his random spots, sometimes you can get really lucky and run into him a couple times within a few turns, but other times you might be waiting the entire game to find Toad. It kind of depends on where he ends up and where all the other players are, because they might get to Toad first. So actually landing on Toad is the main bottleneck to getting stars, and it's the reason why each player usually only gets about 2 to 5 stars in a normal 20-turn game of Mario Party. Now, although you'll normally get 2 to 5 stars in a 20-turn game, sometimes you can get extremely lucky with Mario Party. This is the best footage that I have recorded. It's on the Switch version of Mario Party, Super Mario Party, and I got 9 stars in a 10-turn game. So if you're getting extremely lucky in Mario Party games, you might expect something more around 1 star per turn. So in our 20-turn game, we could get maybe up towards 20. That could be a pretty reasonable guess as a starting point for our question here. So we're going to start our investigation with a fairly simple map. This is Mario's Rainbow Castle, and the reason it's simple is because Toad always stays in this one spot at the very end of the map, up on that tower there. Toad does swap between Toad and Bowser, but we're going to assume that we always get Toad in this because we'll assume we can manipulate the enemies to hit like a question mark space or Bowser or whatever it is to make it turn back into Toad. We'll also be playing as Wario because Wario is very greedy and wants lots of stars. So let's step out what a theoretically perfect game could look like of this. Keep in mind we don't know if we can manipulate the RNG perfectly yet, but let's assume we can. So Wario's going to move, let's say he rolls a 10. So on turn 1, he's going to move left and hit this space here. Now this mushroom space is very special because you can roll either a good mushroom or a poisonous mushroom. And if you roll the good mushroom, you'll get to roll the dice again this turn. So on the same turn, we're going to hit that, roll another 10, and hit this minigame space. We won't worry about coins too much in this simulation, but let's just say coins won't be an issue because we'll hit this minigame space. Not only that, but we'll also have a minigame after each turn. Speaking of which, we're going to move on to turn 2 now. So in turn 2, we're going to roll a 10. That conveniently lets us hit this space right here, and then we'll roll another 10, and we'll get here. So what we're going to do here is we'll buy a star, and that gets us up to 1 star so far. We still have 2 spaces left to move from our dice, so we're going to end up with Wario just sitting there. We'll get the coin bonus from Koopa as well, so yet again we're going to have more than enough coins to buy all these stars we want. So at the end of turn 2 we've got 1 star, and this is playing pretty well so far. So we're going to go again, we're going to roll an 8 here, and then that will let us land on this space, which again we roll another 10 off that and hit the minigame space again. That brings us to turn 4 where we roll a 10 again, hit this space, and then we roll another 10 to get this star here. That brings us up to 2 stars after 4 turns. We still have 2 spaces left to move on our dice, so we end up back here. Now, you may have spotted a pattern here. We're going around on the exact same spaces, and we're using these mushroom spaces to get extra movement out of our turns. So if we play our cards right and manipulate RNG perfectly, by turn 20 we should have 10 stars, because we're getting a star every 2 turns. And that's pretty much what the optimal play could look like on this map, minus some other factors like potentially you could go into Boo, and use Boo to steal stars from other players, or you could do Chance Time and use Chance Time to steal stars from other players. But just plain bread and butter playing the map, you can get 10 stars from Toad in one 20-turn game of Mario Party. So now that we've seen what a perfect game of Mario's Rainbow Castle could look like, we can conclude there's about 10 stars that you can get in a 20-turn round of that. And that's pretty good, but I reckon we can do better on some of the other maps in this game. Next, let's have a look at Peach's Birthday Cake, which is another similar map where you can only go around once and get Toad once, because he's in the same spot every time. So now let's have a look at Peach's Birthday Cake. We're going to start off this game by just going to the right onto this mushroom space here, and we'll assume that we can roll the best one, which is the good one, not the sick one, and that'll give us another 10 spaces, and we'll go up to this question mark. After this one, we're going to go on to turn 2. So we'll roll a 3 to hit this mushroom space, and then we'll roll into this lottery here. Now this lottery, you can either lose it or win it. If you win it, that's sort of like a 3 in 4 chance and you'll go to Toad, otherwise there's a 1 in 4 chance that you lose and go to Bowser. We'll assume that we can win this lottery every time. So we're going to go forward through Toad, we're going to hit this space and we're going to have 1 star because we've just bought 1 from Toad now. Then we're going to keep rolling and hitting these mushroom spaces. So we're going to go through to that one, we're going to get an extra roll and go through to that one, and then we'll get an extra roll and we'll roll a 10 all the way down to this space here. And that's sort of the end of turn 2. Now unfortunately, we're one space short of hitting the next mushroom space. If we could hit that space, then we could make it around the board again and we could do this whole thing and get 20 stars rather than what we have currently. But at any rate, you're going to keep going through, you're going to be getting roughly 1 star every 2 turns, and then by the time you get to turn 20, you should have 10 stars in total. One thing else that I could mention with this map is that when you land on the question mark spaces, you can pay 30 coins and get a piranha plant. That piranha plant will steal a star from another player. So we already land on the question mark space up the top, and we could, on this last turn at the end of turn 2, for example, have rolled an 8 rather than a 10 and get a piranha plant there. So assuming that all goes to plan, you can sort of get a piranha plant every turn, and that will steal a star from another player if they land on it. So in theory, you could have up to 30 stars on this map, but it's incredibly unlikely. So even if you could manipulate it, you'd have to manipulate not only you getting all the stars possible, but the computers getting as many stars as possible, manipulate getting those spaces, manipulate the computers landing there, and manipulate getting a lot of coins so that you can buy those piranha plants. So it's fair to say 30 stars, while in theory you can get it, it's really unrealistic that that would actually happen. Alright, so with that analysis done, I'm going to put on this table 10 to 30 stars, but that 30 is really not realistic at all. Next map we're going to look at is DK's Jungle Adventure, and this is where it's going to get very interesting. So now let's have a look at DK's Jungle Adventure. So this map's going to behave a bit differently compared to the last two we've looked at. In this map, Toad goes to a random position. Now, the way that Toad determines where to go is a bit complicated, but for the purposes of this video, let's just presume we can manipulate Toad to go wherever we want to. So basically, we can manipulate him to spawn in front of us over and over and over again, meaning that we don't really need to worry about whether or not we can land on Toad. We'll just assume that we can land on Toad as much and as often as we want. It turns out this assumption is not realistic at all, but for this video, we'll just go with it. So that means the main bottleneck in this map is going to be coins. How many coins can we get so that we can buy as many stars as possible, given that it takes 20 coins to buy a star? So let's have a look at how to optimize this. We're going to start off with 10 coins, and then on turn 1, we're going to move up to this minigame space here. Now the best minigame I could find to optimize for coins was this whack a plant game where you can get 36 if you whack all the plants. So that brings our coin total up to 46. Next, we're going to manipulate a computer to land on one of those question mark spaces, and that will cause a boulder to come and chase us down this path. So down through there and down through there. We end up on this blue square, and that's the end of turn 1. We got 46 coins so far. Next, we got turn 2. So what we're going to do is roll a 10, and that brings us to this blue space here. That gives us 3 coins, and Cooper gives us 10 coins for passing him. That brings us up to 59 so far. Then we're going to repeat the cycle. We're going to go out to the minigame space, play Whack-A-Plant again, and keep going. So essentially we can get 49 coins every lot of 2 turns, which means that by turn 20 we should have 980 coins all up. Now that's almost correct, but not exactly, because Cooper in the blue spaces double the values that they give you after turn 15. So Cooper will start giving us 20 coins and the blue spaces will start giving us 6, meaning we're going to have an extra 39 coins, and that brings us up to 1019. Now I haven't yet factored in actually playing the minigames in between each turn, so what's the best minigame for coins? Well, the best coin count that I could find was this world record of 90 coins on Castaways, and from the video you can very clearly see that this person has got 90 coins, so we can assume we get 90 coins every turn on top of this as well. So if we add in this 90 coins per turn, that gives us another 1800 over the 20 turn game. It gets us up to 2,819 coins. That's actually enough to buy 140 stars. We'll round that to 100 because 100 is sort of the cap of the amount of stars we want, but in theory you can get 100 stars in a 20 turn game on this map. Now actually in practice, manipulating this RNG is not at all realistic. Toad's going to bounce all around the map and you can't expect to just have him go after you space after space. But this is what you could get if we could perfectly manipulate RNG and everything went our way. So factoring in all this analysis, I'm going to put 100 stars for DK's Jungle Adventure with a big asterisk on it. It's theoretically possible, but I don't think it'll ever happen even in Taz. Moving on, we got Yoshi's Tropical Island, and that's a similar analysis to Rainbow Castle and Peach's Cake. You can get a star every 2 turns, plus there's a chance time space which means that you can steal a star from another player, so that could go up to 20 in theory. Then we got Luigi's Engine Room, which is another one where the star jumps around randomly, and that, with a similar analysis to DK's Jungle Adventure, could get you up to 100. Again, not very realistic. But there's one map that I haven't talked about yet, and it's really important for this challenge, and it's Wario's Battle Canyon. Let's have a look. So the gimmick of this map are these cannons. You go and see the Bob-omb here, and he says that you can fire off to another island. They always go in a set order, either clockwise or anti-clockwise. But when you fire off from the cannon, it has a bit of RNG to it. So you'll have your crosshair show up on various different circles, and you can press the A button to stop what circle it shows up on. This sort of gives you the power to, if you're playing in a TAS setting, choose any circle that you want to go to at all. And what that means is that you can sort of land straight before the bomb, and you can keep firing off to island after island after island, not using up any of your dice numbers. And then if you ever want to refresh your dice numbers, you can just manipulate it so that you land on a toad space and get the good toad, and then that will refresh your dice numbers as well. This map is going to be the key to getting a lot of stars in a game of Mario Party. So this is Wario's Battle Canyon, and rather than showing you in theory how we can get a bunch of stars, I'm going to show you in practice, because I actually did a TAS of this. So I'm not going to get a whole bunch of stars, I'm only going to show you how you can get 3 stars in one turn, but this concept can be extended out to get pretty much as many stars as you want in one turn. So what we're going to do is land on that red mushroom there, and the gimmick of this map is that you shoot in cannons and you get to sort of randomly pick where you're going to land. So we're always going to land the space before the bomb if we can. So here I've got to wait for a really long time, because it actually takes the crosshair quite a while to get onto that space. But as soon as it does, I'm going to hit that space, and then we don't use up any of the dice movements to actually fire off to the next island. So the basic strategy here for getting as many stars as possible is you keep shooting around the islands over and over and over until you get to this island, which has Koopa on it. And you can keep landing before Koopa and then just going past him to get 10 coins. And then if you do that over and over and over, you're going to get 10 coins each time you go around. Given it takes 20 coins to buy a star, you can pretty much buy a star every time you go around. So that's the premise of this TAS, and that's exactly what we're going to do. I'm actually going to be speeding it up a lot, but you'll be able to see that eventually I can go through and buy a bunch of stars. So we zoom over to that island there. We're going to go through and get the red mushroom again, and then we do another loop around. Get another 10 coins from Koopa, and now we're going to go over to this island here. So this is where we're actually going to start buying stars. I'm going to land before Toad here and get another red mushroom there. And then we're going to go and get the star from Toad. Now this is another map where your star is going to spawn into a random position, and it just so happens that the next star spawns pretty much straight in front of where we are now. So I'm going to hit the red mushroom again and roll a 10, and that'll get us through to the next star. So I really can't stress how much luck goes into this. Not only do you need a really good timing for landing on whatever space you want, but you actually need really good luck as to making sure that you have enough dice rolls to get through to the next space or getting onto one of the Toad spaces. One thing that I haven't talked about in this video, but I will talk about in the next part, is how to manipulate the RNG. In short, the game is not actually very random, so when you press the dice, you're always going to get the same number no matter what. So it doesn't depend on the timing or whatever, it's just, if you're going to roll a 5, you're always going to roll that 5 no matter what you do. For example, here I was always going to get the red mushroom, and then I'm always going to roll that 8. RNG only advances when something random actually happens, so that's why this map is so powerful, because the map is randomly selecting what circle you're going to fire towards. So every time this crosshair is changing, that's advancing the RNG. So let's suppose I want to land on a particular space. Hopefully I can just hit that space when the crosshair's on it. But if I don't like the dice roll that I was going to get next, I would wait until I hit that space the next time and see if I get a different dice roll. So pretty much this is the only map that gives you actual control over the RNG in a TAS setting, because you have that crosshair that you can just keep waiting on and waiting on. Otherwise, most maps, pretty much everything is predetermined in terms of the dice rolls that you get and everything that happens in that map. But anyway, we'll keep going around, and we're nearing the end of this little TAS demonstration here. I'm going to go around and get some more coins from Koopa. That brings us up to 20. And then we're going to fire off to this bit of the map here, and we should be getting Toad pretty soon. Unfortunately, Toad's in a bit of a tricky position for us right now. So you'll see I get a red mushroom here, and I can even roll a 10 there, and I have 7 left on the dice. But even if I land as close as possible to this toad here, what's going to unfortunately happen is that I won't have enough spaces to get to the next cannon. So pretty much that's the limit to how many stars we can get in this turn based on where toad is. I could have got that toad star if I had some more coins, but I don't have any more coins. So in theory, you can imagine we'd be able to get 4 stars in this one turn. And that's pretty much the limit of it. Now, toad is actually random as well, and toad's positions are determined when you come into the map. So in theory, I could have come in with better toad positions and made that work, but this was the best I could get in this Taz demonstration. Now, although it didn't look like it, that was actually 10 minutes of Taz gameplay. So this Taz would be pretty tedious to make, but also in my opinion pretty tedious to watch, so that's as far as I chose to go with it. But in theory you should be able to get as many stars as you want on a single turn if you can manipulate Toad to be in favourable positions. Now that sort of brings us to the end of our investigation here. Knowing what we now know about RNG, the 100 star estimate for DK Jungle and Luigi's Engine Room is not realistic at all, but I'm fairly confident that you could definitely get 100 stars in Wario's Battle Canyon in a single game, and potentially even 100 stars in a single turn of Wario's Battle Canyon if you could manipulate Toad into favourable positions. And that's pretty exciting prospect, especially in terms of Tazzing this game. But as I said before, a Taz would actually be pretty boring, and I had a hard enough time making 3 stars. So I don't think I'll go any further than that, but this theory is solid in concept. There are 2 maps that I haven't talked about as well. There's Bowser's Magma Mountain, which follows a similar analysis to some of the other ones. It's not really that exciting. But then there's also Eternal Star. Eternal Star you only unlock after you've got 100 stars, so there's not much point optimizing for stars in there. That's going to be it for this part of the video, but in the next part I'll go into a bit more detail about how the RNG works and show you some of the values and how they change as you're playing the game. But hopefully you found this video entertaining, and if you did then a subscription to the channel would always be appreciated, it helps out a lot. Thanks so much for watching.